So one of the things that I've been chasing down through the system and in the last several weeks, and I think we talked about it as well in December when we last met, was the buzzing. I found the ultimate integration problem that was causing my speaker buzzing, and so some of my plans kind of play into this. So this is my rack downstairs. From top to bottom on that right hand side there is the Anthem STR. That's my 2-channel 2.2 preamp for the living room. There's a couple of triad rack amps, which are the subwoofer amps for the living room. Then I got my AVM 70, and then there's that stack of Parasounds down below there. There's an A31 3-channel that drives the LCRs in the theater, and then there's 2 A52 pluses below that. So I've got 13 channels of amplification there out of the Parasounds. 11 of those amps drive speakers in the theater, and I figured, well, I might as well use the extra 2 Parasound channels to drive the speakers in the living room, and that's these 2 white speakers here, these Focal IW LCR 6s, and below that is a pair of triad bronze subs. So this room has, these speakers have audible buzz, and I've had a bunch of things that I've done to kind of chase this down, find a root cause, and ultimately what I discovered the other weekend here, just a weekend or so ago, was if I take these speakers and I put them on Parasound A52 plus channels, they buzz. If I take these speakers and I put them on A31 amp channels, they don't buzz. But if I take the little sibling of this speaker, the IW6, which is a 2-way bookshelf version, and those speakers on an A52 plus amp channel don't buzz. So there's some really interesting interaction going on with either something related to sensitivity, the crossover network of the speaker, and there's been a ton of comments on the videos, and I appreciate everybody making the comments, sharing thoughts and ideas in that. And one of the initial things was like, well, is something not working right? But I have 2 of these amps, and I have 5 of these speakers, because I have the same 2 speakers here in the living room are the same exact speakers that are my LCRs behind the screen in the theater. And so because I have multiples and everything behaves the same way regardless of what's plugged into what, it's a model to model problem, integration issue, versus any one speaker, or I think any one amplifier, potentially being bad. So and I suspected that, like, the speaker initially, my final conclusion had been coming to is that the speaker run from the rack up to these speakers, the wire run was picking up some noise, and that's not it, because the shorter run of cable going just through the wall, right in the rack here, right on the other side of the wall behind the rack, is one of those same Focal IW LCR 6s. And I can plug that speaker into an A52 and it buzzes. I plug that speaker into an A31 and it does. And I was climbing behind my screen, getting my ear right up to the tweeter, and then running up and down stairs as I was flipping stuff around the other day. So I'm in for some optimization here, I think, and some new amps. So my initial thought, and something that I wanted to do anyway, because I kind of have this a little bit rigged, and it works okay by virtue of Control 4. But what ultimately happens is, like, the STR triggers the triad amps to go on. And then what I actually do is I use a dummy input, a dummy virtual input of the Anthem, which is something that the Anthem lets you do. So I have a virtual input set up that really isn't mapped to any HDMIs or nothing. And that is set to trigger the 2 A52s to turn on by virtue of zone 2 turning on. So when I use my living room, I've got all my sources going into the TV. I've got optical out from the TV coming down into the Anthem STR. Not only does the Anthem turn on, but zone 2 of not only does the STR turn on, but the zone 2 of the AVM 70 turns on, which triggers those bottom A52s. And it's just a little messy. It's a little messier than I would like this ultimately, I think, to be. And so best scenario here, I want to get at least a 2-channel amp that's independent to run those living room focals, take them off the Parasounds, take them off of this kind of like hybrid virtual zone 2, make the living room theater zone basically be standalone and only use the zone 2 pass through just to get my kaleidoscape, just to get a kaleidoscape pass through to be able to use the single strato in the theater or in the living room, which saves me the few $1,000s to buy a second strato. But so I've been researching amp options here pretty heavy, actually talking with Matt as well, and looking at maybe not going with some of these bigger, heavy Class AB, AAB like these Parasounds are, but looking maybe at some newer model style Class D, like an NAD M23. I really like the look of some of the stuff that Apple on Audio or the UK makes, but some of these like nice Purify Class D based amps. And so I can get to a phase 1 of this by picking up that amp and maybe shifting the STR and the Triad amps and the new amp kind of to the upper left section of the rack, and still kind of run the audio for the zone from the basement, have all of the gear and the equipment and stuff in the basement, and the rack and everything will fit it. But that's getting that amp is kind of my first solution. I may even still consider trying something different even for the theater, which is perhaps switching to like an all Purify based amp setup. But I don't have noise problems that bother me in the theater. I kind of lucked out, I guess, because the A31 in those larger focals, it integrates better than those larger focals on the A52s. But in the theater, all of the speakers being driven on the A52s are the smaller IW6s. And so there's just a little bit of, I think, normal or expected hiss when you put your ear right up to the speaker. No audibly problematic buzzing and all of that. But I think longer term as well, I got some bigger plans for the space, akin to what Taurus is talking about, which is kind of shifting some things around a little bit. And so when I originally did this room, when we did the audio in this room, this is what it looked like. We had the Triad subs down at the bottom, and actually with Triad's recommendation, this bump out wall, when we built it, we had angled up here. This is before Atmos and stuff even existed. The LCRs for this room were up here, and I never really liked this after we did it. I had pro companies and folks recommend doing it like this, and I never really liked it. And so this is what we have, of course, now, with the speakers more flanking the TV and the Phantom Center, and I love this setup. But this pitched forward design with nothing up here is kind of goofy, I think, in many ways. So I kind of want to undertake a project in this calendar year, throughout this calendar year, to have somebody come in and essentially rip the face of this wall down and rebuild this without the angled sections. So instead it would just sweep straight vertically up. And in doing so, I want to kind of open these channels to the left and right so that I can get some bigger, perhaps taller speakers in there. I think I'm going to have some opportunity, with the YouTube channel coming up, to maybe work with some brands and test some more speakers. And I kind of want to be able to do it with in-walls, because in-walls is really architectural speakers is what suits my space.
Yeah.
So my plan here is to basically also make this modular. So instead of the speakers, whatever speaker is there being cut and installed into the face of the drywall, I want to have it built inset so that I can have a big sheet of MDF that I can cut to spec, put up inside the inset, cut for a specific speaker or speaker sub combination, and then have some acoustical fabric over that entire piece.
Nice.
Don't have to put the grills on and whatever. So if I get some Focal Utopias, I can test them. If I get some Perlisten S series in walls, I can test them, or the Paradigm Founder series, or whatever it might be. I can have the speakers that fit me, or that I own for the space. But if I get some other stuff in for demo or review, I can put anything I want in there just by pulling off that acoustical covering, getting a $50 sheet of plywood or MDF, cut holes for the speaker that's going up. And I'm not consistently, needing to recut, redo drywall, repaint, and all of that stuff. So this is my loose plan. And I kind of want to bring that gear up actually to this room as well, over here on the left of the bump out there where this kids table is. My kids are too big to even sit at this table and do crafts anymore. But it's still around. This is a really great spot to fit something like a nice little kind of salamander AV cabinet. This would be big enough to hold an STR and an amp or a couple of amps and whatnot. So if I can get that over there, then I can have that equipment in the room with me. It's not removed. I can change the cables. I can come out right down here on the side of this bump out, right behind that cabinet, in order to get cables and whatever I need to get to kind of behind the TV. And I would bring,
life would be so much simpler for you if you did that, Jeremy.
Yep. Some of the things like the pain points with even just controlling volume, or knowing, like, if something goes wrong with the control, what's on, what's not on, it's all in the room.
Yeah.
And
It's funny you mentioned that, because similar to my setup is similar to yours. My living room setup, actually. I have a 5.1 triad setup in my living room, all architectural and wall and ceiling. And all of those wires, the speaker wire, as well as the AVR, I have a X3300H upstairs in the media closet. So doing anything different than what I currently have would be quite a bit of a challenge, because the living room, the great room, is downstairs and the media closet is upstairs. So that means going between walls and everything else. Had I kept the speakers and the AVR local, I think things probably would have worked a lot better for me.
Right.
Because then I could do calibrations without having to have some super long wire, or trying to find a unique way to calibrate my system, because it's all the way upstairs. And
you can't do that with the Marantz.
Yeah.
So that stuff will go there. And then I want to bring my PC up as well, because I'm tired of the integration challenges of having the gaming PC a floor down in a room over. So there's a really nice new case from Fractal Design. I like Fractal quite a bit. I build a lot with their cases. It's called the North. And it's actually like a PC case designed to fit the aesthetic of a open space, a finished space. It's got like almost these like wood slats on the front and whatnot. So I think I can rebuild my gaming computer into a Fractal North that can sit right next to that cabinet. It'll be gear in the room or whatever, and it'll all still pass the wife acceptance factor. And then this opens up more stuff for me too. Like I really would like to play around with some vinyl. Maybe that'll be more of a 2024 thing. If I get all this other stuff done, it at least sets me up, because there's nothing more painful probably than having a record player down in the basement when you're listening in the living room. But instead I could have that turntable sitting on top of that salamander right there. So if we want to play some vinyl in this room, or play around with some vinyl, cover vinyl, whatever on the channel, I'd be able to do that. And I look forward to a longer term upgrade in this space. I would really, really, really love to move from like the Focal Triad sub setup to the Utopias. I was just talking with Matt about this actually this week too. The Focal Utopias have it's the big version, top end version, but they have a subwoofer, this one right here. And these modularly go together, kind of seamlessly go together. They connect with the speak-on cable.
Beautiful.
And so you can get, I would just do one Utopia ideally, and one of the Utopia subs integrated together makes for a single full range speaker that's basically driven by one amplifier, and I don't have to have separate amps for the subs. So my high level thought is to pick up a couple, migrate my way into this basically with an M23 today. At least gets the current focals off of the Parasounds. Hopefully it's dead silent, takes the noise floor down and all of that. But then if I'm able to make the speaker upgrade down the road, these M23s, you can bridge them and basically turn it into a monoblock. So if at some point in time I'm able to run a Utopia plus sub as a full range speaker, I could add a second M23 bridge them both, and then basically have, you know, a 700 watt monoblock driving that
Wow.
that massive line array.
Nice.
Whatever this is, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 10 drivers off of that big M23, and it'll all be, you know, it'll all be fitting right nice in this cubby, all integrated, hidden away, and just have this really, really great hi-fi setup. But in the space that we use and we're in all the time,